When I love squad members, I can't act cool.
Hey, young, this your beat? Nothing lasts forever, I don't got tattoos. I love squad members, I can't act cool. I like my bitches short and thick and they ain't gotta act rude. She won't treat me like I'm the rest, cause I ain't that dude. I see some things as a child that change my thoughts forever. Try to do right, I'm on their ass and I won't fucking let up. Hit from the side, bitch, don't be lazy, lift your fucking leg up. To all my niggas going through a struggle, keep your fucking head up. Anything you going through, I'm a witness, it won't last forever. Just stay down and hold your side, don't change up like the weather. If he around me, then he got a ruler, but he ain't trying to measure. I gotta inhale me some weed to get my thoughts together. Hard in the summer, but my heart cold, so I gotta rock a sweater. We came in this roll alone, so we ain't gon' leave out together. I know I'm blessed, I know my worth, so I can never settle. You can't show yourself for you, only time can tell. Fuck here, get one time to fuck up, then you can't go here. Whoa, dear, I got too many stuff to bring a pole here. No deal, I won't set my soul ain't high and go here. I won't school, I stay loyal to my niggas and my bitch stick to the cold hill. It's a new 40 on my hood, the bitch a blow hill. It's a different dope inside the blunt, we getting lows in. Smoking on some dope from cause the country got a joke in. Beat the bitch like a receiver, put the bitch in motion. I'm drinking on some shit that change a mood, we call it potion. Can't even hide the 30 in the clip, baby, poking. And I bought them bean, we got some smooth and get it going. White girl playing with her, no Lindsay Lohan. My little cousin slipped up and lost a baby, she was 16. Ain't doing shit for free, I want 200 for a 16. Glock with a dick and 30 clip with a red beam. She make it hard for me cause all that nigga sold a big dream. Don't lose no thug behind no shit you saying that you ain't me. All my niggas slide, you know what's up, bitch, you can't play me. I see the picture clear, my life a movie like it's HD. I'm a 50K screens and I ain't got no post on say cheese. Light a little whip and when I up it better say cheese. This life taught me some lessons, fuck the school, I own a degree. I'm just trying to take care of my people, how you hate me. When a nigga got caught with that elite, the shit was crazy.
Bitch, the trap baby shit don't do that.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? I want to thank you guys for joining us for the Get Hooked podcast, episode number 50. We're at 50 already. All right. So, as always, this is your boy Hook.
And his much younger co-host, Crystal.
You did wake up and you really did wake up and choose violence, huh? I feel you. It's all good. I'm gonna let you have that one. Hey, let my mama say keep living, you'll get there. All right, so
A long time ago.
yesterday, right, was Father's Day. So fresh off the heels of Father's Day, we felt that this would be an appropriate topic to touch on. So today we're going to be talking about Black fathers and the importance of accountability. Are we Black men, Black fathers specifically, are we responsible for holding our peers accountable as it pertains to taking care of our kids? So Chris, what say you?
So this is different for me because I've never been a Black father. I've had Black role models, but I've never had my dad. So this is very different to hear a conversation. I mean, I've been blessed for my children to have, an amazing dad, regardless of anything else. My children have had a very present and devoted father. So it does make a major difference. But I feel that when women come on and talk about dads, we're bashing because we're talking from a different standpoint. It's different when you have Black men or any type of man hold another man accountable. So I'm excited and I'm very interested to see how this is going to go.
Yeah, should be pretty good, and I'm kind of like you, Chris, is because my dad wasn't there, so I've got two girls myself, so I'm having to navigate fatherhood and pretty much learn on the fly because obviously I didn't have somebody there to teach me how to be a dad or really a good dad. So, but I'm sure we'll touch on that here in a second. But we've got three gentlemen here who are really going to help us with the conversation. So, guys, go ahead and tell us who you are.
All right, so hopefully everybody can hear me. My name is Jeremy Lane. Most people that know me affectionately call me Jay Lane. Originally from Columbia, South Carolina. kind of raised here, born in Atlanta, Georgia, but right now I'm a teacher, coach, mentor, minister. I mean, I got to wear a lot of different hats, and so I get a chance to kind of interact with a lot of different young people from different varieties, different walks of life, and different things like that. So I'm excited to kind of be a part and kind of talk about my role and what I see is missing or lacking in the community, and just kind of maybe help shed some light on some things that our young people are looking for and what they're asking for. I got 2 sons myself, and I got a daughter on the way due in September. So it means a lot to me. So to be here.
Hey Barry, we happy about that girl, ain't it?
About time. About time. About time. Hey, congratulations, man. Congratulations. All right, so my name is Barry Aldane. A lot of people know me by B Skeet. Not fond of that name. That's retired though. I'm a proud father, husband. Have 3 children right now, 2 girls and then 2 boys, 1 on the way. So I'm excited about that. Got even out the testosterone and the estrogen throughout the household. So, but the women still win. They run the show. So for me, I'm a healthcare executive. I work in the senior living management line of work. For me, my experience is different. I don't get to work with a young audience, so I get to pick the brains of those who are elderly and who have lived through a lot of trials that I've been through, as far as being absent from having a father, being raised by my mom primarily. I had a stepdad, but wasn't really like interactive. Met my dad probably, I would say, a little over a year ago, and had a face-to-face conversation for the first time at the age of 35. So that was one whirlwind of emotion for me. So I would like to just get to share, my experiences and how it doesn't determine your outcome in life, and whether or not you can be the type of father that is conducive to raising young men or women to be successful and contribute to society.
All right.
Amazing.
And congratulations, bro. So my name is Rob. I'm from Hawkins, South Carolina. I am my 9 to 5. I'm a senior regional HR manager. So I've been in the senior regional role for a number of different years. So wear a lot of different hats being in that role. So, everything, kind of touch everything from a legal standpoint, employee law, employee relations. I mean, you name it. Also own, several side businesses. So I've been on here 2 or 3 different times. So I don't think it's relevant for this topic today. But what I will say is that I had a very active father. So actually today is my father's birthday. So he passed almost 2 years ago. And for those of you that know me, like when I was out and about, like my dad was right there. So there were times where, I was promoting parties and X, Y, and Z. My dad was with me in the club. So like my dad was like my best friend. So also anybody that knows me, like my dad also helped raise everybody in the neighborhood. I mean, there's not anybody probably between the age of 35 to probably 40 that doesn't know my dad. So, he was definitely loved, within the Hopkins community. So definitely want to talk about that too. So, I hear a lot of different stories about, people who don't have active fathers or didn't have active fathers. So I think me sharing my father with the community and also having them in the household made me who the man I am today. So when we get into these specific topics, I would love to share my experiences, and then hopefully it can, help, with some of the more absent fathers out there, within the community. So.
Well, each of you was selected for a different reason. Jeremy, I picked you. Of course, Jeremy and I have been friends for well over 20 years, but Jeremy is a dad himself. He had a dad that was there, but also he is like a dad figure to his students and his players that he coaches. So I knew his insight would be really dope. I specifically brainstormed with Jeremy about someone I knew who beat the odds, was a dad that, we all say you're a product of your environment. I want to see someone who turned around and did something different, and bow. And we came with Aldane. And Rob told us before we even knew that we was going to do this, when you do this, do this.
Sign me up.
we knew that Rob had an active dad, but Rob, we also watched you do things like you got 16 different jobs and businesses, but you did the same thing for your son. And you mentioned that the last time. So you all just gave different views and aspects from corporate to mentor to minister to, defying all the odds. And it was just a perfect mix of people to bring on for us today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to say, like, I'm really envious of men who had a relationship with their dad. Again, you know what I mean? Because I that's something I missed out on. And it did cause some internal issues with myself, just some things trying to find my way and stuff like that, which I'm over it now. My dad and I have never had a one-on-one conversation. We always said we were going to have the conversations. It's really a weird dynamic because with my dad, like growing up, he only lived the street over. So it's not like I didn't know him or I never seen him. I knew exactly who he was, but we just never fostered that relationship. And Rob,
it makes a big difference when you don't know him. This man and me could walk by each other in Walmart and I'd be like, "Excuse me, sir." He'd be like, "Go ahead, young lady." We don't know each other. So it makes a difference. But for girls, dads are known to be protective. So imagine dating and being in this world, there's nobody to walk up to a guy and be like, "Listen, for my baby girl, they'll put a wreath on your mama dough." You don't have that. So you become your own defense and your own protector. It's a different beast.
Right. And Rob, you kind of touched on because I really wanted to establish some context. And if you want to elaborate some more, that's perfectly okay. But the first thing I wanted to ask was how active were your fathers individually for each of you three? How active were your dads in your life growing up and throughout your adult life? And also, how did your relationship with your dad impact the type of father you are now?
I guess I can go first. No, Jay, you got it, bro. You got it.
So, I mean, I was just gonna say my dad is from a different generation, and so I think it makes a difference because I didn't have a young dad. You know what I'm saying? So when I grew up, so my brother and my sister are my brother is 15 years older than me and my sister is 9 years older than me. So like I was the best mistake that happened to my parents. You know what I'm saying? So when I came along, you know what I'm saying, my dad was a little bit older and he was there, he was active, but some of the things that I could imagine that he could do with my brother and sister, like he couldn't really do with me. But as I got older, and I kind of saw some of the things that were going on and everything like that, I started to appreciate what he was doing for me a whole lot more, if that makes sense what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So my dad's kind of he come from he was hard nosed, like, and I appreciate that on him because I was a hard headed little boy. You know what I'm saying?
We know.
My dad came from the Jim Crow. We know. Like, I mean, for real. But my dad, but he had to be on me because I mean, if he didn't, I would have been wild. Like I would have been a lot wilder than what I was. You know what I'm saying? My dad came from the Jim Crow South, where he could only drink out of blacks only water fountain. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people can't say their dad came from that, but my dad came from that. You know what I mean? So like I understand kind of why he was so tough on me as a kid now. Because I find myself trying to balance that toughness on my sons right this second. You know what I'm saying? And so trying to learn that aspect of it kind of has helped me. And then I also saw some of my friends that didn't have that strong figure like that and how they needed it. You know what I'm saying? And they would fall off and do some different things or just not end up in the best situations because they just didn't have nobody to really, to snatch them back to reality. You know what I'm saying? And, we would get far gone, whereas I was with them, somebody had their hand on me and they'd snatch me back, but they wouldn't snatch them back. You know what I mean? And I think that made a huge difference in my life because I'm telling you, man, I had a bad temper. I had a hot head. I would fight you at a drop of a dime, and it's just what it was. You know what I mean? So, I mean, but I appreciate my dad for kind of keeping me grounded.
We praise God for deliverance.
Rob,
you had one? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think I remember all the questions. So so my dad was active from day one. So both of my parents retired military. So I was an army brat. Like I've always, like my dad was always there. And you know, not to give a whole life story, but one of the things that made me who I am is that I saw my dad make certain sacrifices that at the time I didn't necessarily understand, but I understand them now. You know, because I'm a father, and then also understanding, you know, situational leadership, if that makes sense. So there were times where, you know, like the first Iraq war or whatever, you know, where both of my parents, they tried to send both of my parents off. And then my dad was like, no, I'm just going to get out. So my mom stayed, he allowed my mom to stay in so she could do her 22 years. And then he went ahead and retired early. And then my dad stayed home with me and my sister. So, you know, there were a lot of people don't know this about me, but I don't mind sharing. But from the time I was 10 years old to the time I was 17, my mom wasn't there. And it wasn't me. Not that she wasn't there because she didn't love us, but she was still in the military. So we would see my mom Christmas, and we would see my mom like during the summertime. But my daddy was there every day. So he was the one that was like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to put my career on hold, allow my mama to, you know, to continue her career. And he made certain sacrifices. So, you know, having a father, you know, in the home every day that's retired military and from the streets of Houston, Texas, like my dad had the militant in him, and he was hood. You know, I got best of both worlds, you know, and he was always like, hey, you know, like, I want you to be better than me, you know, like he would take us back to Houston and say, look, this is, you know, I came from the South Side, and like, this is where I came from. This is not what I want from you, you know. So there was times where when I was super young, I was in private school, and then, you know, much like you, Jalen, you know, I still had the high head, and, you know, I would get in fights in X, Y, and Z. But, you know, he always taught me to like protect myself. So from a very early age, I mean, from 4 or 5 years old, all I knew was sacrifice. You sacrifice for your family. And one of the things that he always talked about from day one is like, listen, I don't care if you got one piece of bread. If you got a family, you split it up amongst everybody. So there were just certain sacrifices that were just tattooed and instilled in me. So now me being the father, it's all about, you know, how do I make sure that I keep his legacy going and making sure that I'm the father that I'm supposed to be. So some of the things that I saw that he did in terms of like, he was an outstanding father. He wasn't perfect, right? But what I will say is that I took all the positive attributes that he had, and I keep them for myself. And then I just try to put my spin on it so I can become a better father as well. So for me, you know, there were certain times where my dad would handle things a hood way. But for me, you know, like when I get in that same situation, I'm like, you know what? I remember how I felt in that particular situation. So I don't do my son like that. And my son will be 17 in August. You know, I don't do my daughter like that because I remember how that felt. So, you know, it made me a much better man, a much better father. I mean, I can go on and on, but the biggest thing that he instilled in me is to make sure that, you know, you had a proper level of sacrifice and you were doing it for the right reason.
I'm ready. I mean, I love their dynamics and what they got instilled from their fathers, but you and I had a really, really good conversation, and we were very similar in a lot of our ways because what we did not have, we fought to be. Go ahead, express it.
All right. So for me, my dynamic is different. Only have my mom, you know, to basically look out for us. I may add to it, I was also the middle child, so I have middle child syndrome. The other part of it is that, you know, I'm Haitian. So my mom came here, immigrated here like in 1980, 81 on a boat that just floated at sea until they got to the shore of Miami. And y'all know how that goes, right? So uneducated, was poor, came here to get a better life, couldn't read, write, nothing. So there's another dynamic there for us because here we are, 5 kids who don't have a father in the home that is active or engaging, and you don't have someone that is educated that can actually instill certain values and morals in you because she grew up without her mother and barely had her father. So it's like that recurring cycle, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things that affected me with that was, well, one of my reactions to it was I always acted out in school, write-ups, you know, left and right, behavioral issues, not recognizing until I got older that I was really just acting out and crying for help because I didn't have a male figure in my life. So it really pained me growing up because I didn't have a dad to basically steer me in the right direction, to tell me to look a man in the eye, to speak up, to stand up straight, how you're supposed to treat a woman, different elements, so many things that I've had to make mistakes and learn on my own throughout the years, even how I treat a woman, seeing how a father and a wife, their bond and the respect that they show for one another is something that I didn't truly have until I got into my mid to late 20s, to be completely transparent. So until then, it was just, hence the name B Skeet, not proud of it. Back in the day, you'd laugh about it and think it was all cool, but being a father right now, it's just looking back, not proud of those moments. There were hard lessons learned. I rather have learned from example than experience. We all know what experience does to us. It leaves those scars and those burdens that you will always be reminded about, when you finally make those right decisions. So I think the way it shaped me is, I like to say I'm not a product of my environment, but I am a product of my environment. And when I say that, I mean that the environment that I come from does not shape me or make me who I am, but it made me who I am because I wanted the opposite of what I had. So when I would see children who had both mom and dad, at their sporting events, at the games, I was an athlete through and through, track, football, basketball, never had mom there, never had dad there, last game senior year, last track meet, state finals, no parents there. So it's just been a lifetime of hurt, but what do? Do you just say, well, forget it? I never had that type of, relationship with my father. He wasn't there. Or do you stop and say, I wish I had this. So when I have my kids, I'm going to love on them. I'm going to teach them the right way, why it's important to be a father and be active in their lives. So, that's my experience. And I think it's really shaped me to be a better father, still learning, still making errors, still making mistakes as a husband as well. But, I check myself about it and we just keep rolling.
Hook, I want you to take off your host hat for a moment, and I want you to answer as well because you come with a different dynamic. All three of these guys are currently married, and they are in the home every day with their children. You are actually engaged, and you are in a blended family. And with a blended family, I've known you for years, from our VZ Dub days, which is like, listen, it's a college. There is a difference with you get to see your kids every day because you're with their mother. And when you have to be a present and accountable father, but you're in a different home. And if Hook ain't never did nothing else, his daughter is on his hip. And now his daughters are on his hip. I want to hear from you on this one.
For me, it was really simple. Again, my dad wasn't there. It's no secret. What I will say is, thank God I was born in a huge family. My grandparents had 13 kids. All right. So I grew up with 55 first cousins, and we saw each other every single day at grandma's house in the summer. So it's like, we grew up more like brother and sister. So my dad wasn't there, but I had my older brother. I had my older cousins. I had my uncles. So I didn't have a dad active in the house, but I did have positive male influences to teach me some of the things that some of the ways a man should be. And because my dad wasn't there, because again, I have one biological daughter, and I have my fiance has a daughter, but I don't categorize them any other way. When people ask me, I say I got 2 girls. Period. I've got 2 daughters, and it's really just giving them the things that I didn't have, the things that I missed. I didn't have a dad to do TikTok videos with me. I didn't have a dad to do homework with me. I didn't have a dad to sit down at the table with me and ask me how my day was. So these are things, even the small things I do with my girls now. And I live in a house. I got a bunch of women in the house. So I got my fiance, I got my 2 girls. Even the dog is a female, so it's like, so I'm like overwhelmed right now, So I just can't get away from it. But it's just one of those things where I'm not perfect. And I'm learning on the fly. But my thing is at the end of the day, when my girls grow up, I need them to know that their dad is there. And for me, that's the most important thing. And what I realized being a dad now, the shit ain't hard. It's not hard to be a dad. It's not hard to be a good dad. You have to be accountable and you have to be visible. You have to be there. You know, even if you're not there daily, you know, you can do certain things. And, you know, for me now, and the thing about it, I know my dad's a good dad. He just wasn't a good dad to me. You know, he's a good dad to my sister. Excellent dad to her. Again, he lived the street over, so I would see them riding by in the car. I would see them doing things together. And imagine you being a 6, 7, 8-year-old kid. You see your dad doing all these things. You're like, you know, what about me? You know, and thank with a lot of prayer, excellent mother, excellent support system, and therapy, I was able to get my bearings as a man. So and what that taught me in terms of, because the second part of my question was how that's made me a better father. Again, like there's nothing I'm not gonna do for my girls. There's nothing that there's no, like, I'm gonna be there, right? Through thick and thin, through no matter what it is, I'm gonna sacrifice. I'm gonna do whatever it is that I need to do to make sure that my girls are okay.
So everybody has the agreement. You're supposed to be the parent you needed or you admired, depending on what you had growing up, and it makes a difference from daughters to sons. All of you come from very different experiences, but you all came out and did the exact same thing. I respect that, what you said. A lot of times we feel like a healthy home is both of you in the home, but all of you also talked about, if you're not healthy as a man, can you raise healthy children? And everybody seems to have dealt with their hurt and their issues in efforts to be great fathers to their children. So we really appreciate your insights today, because that each story had a different blessing in it. I'll tell you that.
Definitely. And to get to the meat of Jeremy, you have something you want to say? Oh,
go ahead. I'll wait.
Now, I was just going to say, to get to the meat of pretty much one of the main reasons we wanted to do this particular topic. And I'll ask you guys, and Chris, if you want to chime in, you can as well. But do you guys have friends or associates whom you would classify as, I guess, either quote unquote deadbeat, or people who you interact with who aren't doing what they need to do for their kids? You don't have to call names or anything like that, but do you know of people who fall into those categories?
For me personally, I don't know anybody who falls into that category. Now, have I known of some? That's a different story. But knowing what I know now, you know, I'm similar to you, Hook. The crazy thing is, I didn't know it was my father, but I've seen this dude so much throughout my life, so nice to me and my brothers and sister. It was just crazy. You know, the hurt that I felt when I found out was crazy. But to your point, I don't know anybody who is a deadbeat or classified. At this stage in my life, I couldn't associate myself with it because that's just not who I am. And like they say, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. I can't associate with people that doesn't feel the importance of being in a child's life, because guess what? You're that man that wasn't there for me. So how can I associate myself with someone who does not feel the importance of raising children and letting them be lost and go through the pain and suffering that they're going to experience? And you have to think about it on a deeper level. It's not just the fact that they're absent. It's what they're missing. They're not missing those life lessons, you know, those mistakes that you've made, you know, being there for you when it matters the most, when you're going through those trials and tribulations throughout life and you're learning how to be a man, but you have nobody to show you the way. That stuff is, I'm going to tell you, man, the things that you can experience, and you may have experienced some things on your own, it is not fun. And some things you just don't come back from. Some things will haunt you till this day, you know? So I just personally could not associate myself with it, but I would do my due diligence to understand what their psyche is. And if I can say something to them, I would. Like, bro, that's not cool. And I'm going to tell you why. So do you still think that's okay? Because oftentimes we as Black men and Black people as a whole will judge people and not even understand it. Because a lot of these men, they just don't have the proper perspective or the guidance to understand what it is that they're seeing and what the big picture is. They might think it's okay. That child don't need me. They mama good. She don't like me. She want to be with this other dude. There's various reasons why men aren't active in their children's lives. So if you're going to be around someone and you see it and they're close enough to you, how can you help before you start to judge? Now, if they don't want to turn away from those ways, then like I said before, I can't associate myself with it.
It's a different beast. I did the 23andMe. And when I did it, everybody who I told about it when I did it asked me, if you find him or if it connects you, do you want to meet him? And I said no, and I meant it. So there were a lot of friends accountable. Well, how does he feel? And are you sure how? Well, listen, they were the adults. So that's when the kid in me came out. They were the adults and I was the kid. It is not my turn to say, well, I don't want to hurt his feelings because I'm 36 years old. Let's talk about feelings. Now I got to call to this grown man. I'm not doing it. And I had to think too, on TV, it's beautiful when you reunite and you meet people. But like y'all said, I couldn't handle knowing that he lived 2 streets over. Everybody in my family going to get hit. I'm just not that delivered just yet because y'all knew and nobody told me. Could I run with someone who was doing that? No, because when you do certain things, when you still got issues within yourself as the kid, it is hard to be around people who feel like they're attacking the kid in you. So if I'm working with you on a daily basis and I see what you're doing to your child, the child in me feels it. I can't. There's something in me that just cannot, because I know what that kid feels like. I know what the donuts for dads look like, and you're like, yeah, not part of that. I know what Father's Day looks like, and you're in the house joking with the moms, Happy Father's Day, which is an insult because they're not dads. I know what the awkwardness is when you're trying to figure out. I mean, I only had one uncle biologically, so when I walked down the aisle, my previous relationship, that's who walked me down. But if I didn't have my uncle, then it's like rock, paper, scissors, who's going to take me down the aisle? So it's just certain things that you deal with and you go through, and that's just not that. Of course, you're talking about cars and jobs and life and to college tuition and just figuring out how to survive and thrive on your own and dealing with there's a stress when one parent has to raise you. That's one frustration. There is no go ask your daddy. There is no go to your dad for a little bit. There is no your dad gonna come to help. That's one person. If you've had a single parent home, mama was a different, grandma was a different beast when she had to do it on her own. So you miss that balance, and it's a different type of stressor in the house. So for someone to sit around me and be like, yeah, I ain't seen my kid in about 10 years. I don't have much to say to you because that family suffered for 10 years, whether the mom and you get along or not. The balance was needed. The protection was needed. That attention was needed. And I know that difference. And everybody don't want to look up at 36 and meet you. You gonna look up and think that you get that second chance around, and that child might be like me and go, nah, I don't want to know you. I don't want to dance with your demons. Absolutely. So you have to remember that second chance may not come around. You may not get that reunion with that child. That child may not want nothing to do with you when you turn your life around later. Right.
And Jeremy, go ahead. You were about to say something?
Man, I was just gonna piggyback off of what Barry said, man. I feel like that question in regards to can you still associate yourself with people who are willingly not part of their child's life and just different things like that. In my personal opinion, I'm going to do my best to talk to you because I feel like you can't hold somebody accountable for anything unless you express to them how you feel. Like you can't just assume that somebody knows. You know what I'm saying? And so from what I have learned, all I can do is try to give you what wisdom that I have been granted at thus far in my life. And I'm not going to say that wisdom is going to help you because my cross is my cross to bear, not yours. But all I can do is give you what kind of I've been through and then hope that helps you. But as far as me walking with you and rocking with you every day and you knowingly are not doing or trying to do what you need to do, based. I just don't see if you right now. Granted, there are some situations that are not perfect. You know what I'm saying? And every situation is a trial by trial type deal. And so I think you have to understand those situations too before you pass judgment, because that's not our place to pass judgment. But if you're in your heart of hearts, you know what's been placed in you and what's been placed on you. So it's your job to do what you've kind of been instructed to do. After you do that, all you can do is wash your hands and keep it pushing, because at that point in time, you've done everything you can do. So as a black male at this point in my life, I'm here. I'm gonna give you what I got, and then after that, I'm gonna keep it moving. I'm gonna tell you this too. I know some dope dads. I mean, I know some truly dope dads in my life, and I know some ones that, in my opinion, I wouldn't do the things that they doing. And it's not just about being a good father. See, a lot of people get it twisted. They think being a good father is only being good to your kids. Nah, it's more than that. It's being good to your wife, your mama, your sister, your brother, all of that, because those kids are looking at you in every aspect of you. I can't be a dope dad to my sons and not be a dope dad to every other child that's placed in my line of sight. I can't pick my child up and give her a lollipop or him a lollipop, and there's a child sitting next to him and they thirsty or hungry, and I not give them a popsicle too. You know, and see, a lot of people don't get it twisted, because the responsibility is in the community. It's not just in the person. And see, a lot of times we're so selfish sometimes as black people that we won't give to the other black people. And it's a selfish nature. It's that slave mentality that's got us being selfish, and we cannot continue to be selfish if we want our communities to thrive and flourish and to people to step up. Because I'm gonna tell you, the number one thing that'll make another man step up is having a group of men around them stepped up and they getting left behind, because we taught inherently as kids, we are taught to compete. And if I see Rob and Barry doing well and Hook doing good, and I'm like, oh, they leaving me behind, and something in me is gonna make me say, I need to catch up. I need to do better. And see, a lot of people don't get that. They don't get that. Understand? You want to shun somebody from the group, when really bring them along, let them see what you're doing. I promise you, if they meant to do it, they'll pick that up.
Great.
Boy, you better talk that.
You about to make me dance, boy.
Hey, you might as well go. Hey, just go to the next topic. I'm not coming behind that. Listen, I'm not coming behind that. Somebody get the some water. No, you spot on.
But you know what? That's real though. Because I'm gonna open the door for you to preach, but listen. That's real, because you know what, Jalen, you hit on something right there. It's beyond your own four walls, right? It's your community. It's the type of person that you are. Being a father is not just to your kids, to your wife. It's the person that you are in the community, because your child has to learn how to conduct themselves when they get out into the real world. That's going to tell them whether or not you've had true home training. Because I know everybody in here has that same type of mentality with their mama. You ain't about to get out there and embarrass me.
That's it.
That's the first thing. I don't care what your nationality is. Every black mama is on that. If you're going to get out there, you better not embarrass me, right?
Like you ain't got no home training. Rob, you touched on a lot of what Jeremy said to a T, because you said your dad was the community dad. How was that growing up when everybody looked to your dad as like, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be where I'm at?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. But I mean, if I'm keeping the 1,000, like there's pros and cons. Like there's pros and cons to that. And so, you know, I will say that there were times, and you know, Jay hit on this, to where being a child that I was selfish. I was like, man, every time I turn around, my dad's here for this person, my dad's there for that person. And yeah, he was always there for me too. But anybody within my circle in the Hopkins community, they can tell there were times I would come home and, man, I've got 4 or 5 people sitting on the porch, and he's sitting around talking and mentoring everybody when I needed my dad. Like, you know, I'm like, damn, I need you today, you know? So like, damn.
My daddy.
Yeah. So, I mean, so there's pros and cons, but what I will say is that from a community standpoint, like the biggest thing that I learned from him, you know, just outside sacrifice, is you got to show love. And I think that's what, you know, and I'm not trying to, you know, summarize what Jay was saying, but you got to show love to more than just the people, you know, within your 4 walls. You got to show love to everybody else. So one of the things that I do is I try to show love as much as I can. So you're absolutely right. I mean, them brothers hit it right on the head. I'm not gonna go and see a child that wants something like, and I'm getting something for my child, and that child's gonna go without, whether I know that child or not. You know, if I'm in a financial position to take care of that child, then yeah, I'm gonna do that. Because also what you don't know too is sometimes you don't know what seeds that you're planting, you know, within that child.
You don't know
You don't know that.
Angel.
I cannot tell you how many times, you know, through the course of, you know, me being the father, that someone's come back and said, hey, you may not remember me, but I remember when. Yeah. And, you know, at that particular time, like, you just don't know in that moment. You're like, oh, I was just being nice, or, oh, I was just doing X, Y, and Z. But you don't understand sometimes, you know, what you spark inside of a child, you know, for them to go back and be like, man, you know what, now I want to be a much better person. But from a community dad aspect, like, I mean, yeah, he showed love to everybody. I mean, if he was going to cook, he's going to cook for everybody. I mean, it didn't matter who you were. And it wasn't until later on in life I knew that he was making financial decisions or financial sacrifices to ensure everybody in our neighborhood had it. And you can't find anybody, I promise you couldn't find anybody on Whore Hill, Cross Hill, up and down Lower Richland that did not know my dad. He was gonna open the doors to you and take care of you. So, you know, you got to be able to show love, because you're absolutely right. It takes a village. You know, and there are so many, unfortunately, there's so many absent fathers that are out there that don't do what they're supposed to. Just to directly answer the question, I have zero tolerance for anybody that's not taking care of their children. I have zero tolerance for it. There's no space within my circle for it. And I will say this, and you know, I'm glad Hook said it, and I wouldn't put any names out there, but there have been times and opportunities where I've checked people within my circle because I felt like they weren't doing what they were supposed to do for their children. And, you know, I have to have that uncomfortable conversation, because I wouldn't be the man that I am, you know, the man that my dad raised me to be, if I'm just deviating and allowing something to go on that I don't agree with. And it's not necessarily about, you know, judging them, you know, as a father, but I've seen people make certain sacrifices for themselves that they haven't made for their children. And there's no space within my circle for that. You know, I've seen people, you know, spend money and they'll go out on a trip and then turn around, and then I know that their kids, you know, don't have the clothes or the resources or X, Y, and Z, and there's no space for that. And I check people immediately. So that's why I was so passionate when we had, you know, the previous podcast, because, you know, one of the things that we're talking about is accountability. And, you know, I do think that sometimes, you know, within our community that, you know, I've been cool with this person for, you know, 5, 10, 15 years, and that's my partner. And then we turn a blind eye, we put on rose-colored glasses, but we cannot do that. Like, the moment you identify that somebody's not doing what they're supposed to as a man, you have to check them. And if you don't, then you're not a man and you're not a friend. You know, you have to have those uncomfortable conversations. So, you know, at the end of the day, you know, within my circle, there's no place for it, there's no space for it, and there's zero tolerance on my end. Can't do it.
And and honestly, I legit didn't even think about this till we were involved in this conversation. But in my hood, growing up, I knew everybody mama. Mm-hmm. But I don't know their dads though. And I literally didn't even think about that till just now, because I'm like, because you were talking about how your dad, you know, was, and Rob, I never met your dad, but I admire your dad. You just simply based on the fact that, you know, he's there for you know, everybody's kids basically, because like I said, my dad wasn't there, so I had my brother. Me and my brother, we're only 6 years apart, so it's not a huge age gap. But we never had an opportunity to establish a brotherly relationship because he had to assume the role of father in the household. So he was more of an authoritarian than my mom. So if I stepped out of line, it was him who either beat me or chastised me or did whatever. So when he went off to college, you know, I didn't have that there. But the dudes that he left behind that didn't go to college, the hood dudes, you know what I'm saying? If they saw me out, hey, well, you need to get your ass back to the house. Yeah. You know, your brother don't want you out here. So it's that village that we always talked about. So there was, and maybe I was blessed in that regard, because I guess now that I'm older, I understand everybody didn't have that. They didn't have that community that was able to look out for those who didn't actually have a father figure in the house. So I completely get it. And I think, you know, you guys pretty much touched on the next thing I was going to ask. I was going to ask is it a man's responsibility to hold another man accountable for not taking care of his kids? Go ahead.
I was going to say something, because I knew you was coming with that question, and I felt that, but I was going to say this. Yes, And the reason why I say that is because if I can't trust, if I can't go to Rob and I drop my two boys off, and Rob and I expect Rob to watch my boys, and I don't trust Rob to discipline my boys, then I can't drop them off to him. So hopefully that makes sense. If I can't trust you as a man to take care of mine, and you supposedly to be my friend, then we need to have a conversation.
That's true.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you my boy, I should be able to take my boys and take them to you and be like, hey, I need to go take care of something. Hey, I need you to watch them for me for a minute. And
Jeremy,
if they do something wrong,
I've ever thought about that. Does make sense. I can't trust my friend.
If I can't trust you to watch my kids, then you ain't. We got bigger problems.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Because there's a reason why I can't trust you to watch my kids. And when I say watch, I'm talking about just feeding them. I'm talking about disciplining them, talking to them, chastising them. When I say watch my kids, if they with you for 8 hours, they gonna do something wrong. You get what I'm saying? So hopefully I didn't go too much off topic with that hook.
Oh, no.
I'm tracking. That make a whole lot of sense.
You can't trust your friends to be a surrogate parent in your absence when their child is there. If I got to look at you and be like, no, I ain't gonna do that, then you're not having a conversation with your friend about the type of parent they've been, because association brings assimilation. You all should have, like you said, accountability. We all should be doing something different. And we don't think about that because, like Rob said, sometimes you've been friends with somebody for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and you're like, well, that's how they are. Yeah, but you don't trust them with your kids. What do you think it's doing to theirs? Because clearly it's a reason you don't trust them with yours. And that's serious. That is something that we don't think about. We look at time and we don't think about accountability. And it is your responsibility, whether you're a man or a woman, to hold somebody because most of us have friends we love. Mm-hmm. It is your responsibility to hold those you love accountable for when they're falling off.
Elevation requires separation. That accountability is not that it's not holding your peers accountable. It's really being accountable to yourself. Mm-hmm. Because when you set the standard that I cannot associate with you, that sets the tone that you're not on the level that I need you to be on. So you're not worthy of being associated with me or my children. You know what I'm saying? Because you cannot bank on a friendship that you have for 15, 10, however many years you grew up with this person. Because as you grow, you start to lose people and you start to gain new people. In order to grow, you have to continue to surround yourself with people that are of a different mind. Because if you don't, you're going to plateau. You're limiting yourself. So in order to continue to build off of that, you have to continue to elevate your mind, separate from those who are not on the same wavelength as you. You have to set that tone with your children, because as they're coming up, they're seeing that example. They may not understand what's going on, but they register that dad is moving different. I'm seeing a change in dad, and some of the people dad was hanging out with, he's not hanging around those people no more. So as they grow up, it's going to be a subconscious thing for them when they're around people that are doing things that are not kosher, that are not conducive to them growing individually as a person, as a human being. You've already done your job just by the example that you set. It's not always that we have to verbalize and communicate what our frustration is or point out what the flaw is in that individual. It could simply be what Jaylen mentioned earlier. You got to wash your hands with it. I've tried with them. I've spoken to him about it. I've already had a little session. He doesn't get it. It's not of value to him. I can't understand that. We can't relate. So therefore we have to separate.
To her comment at the bottom, I get it that we have different points of upbringing, but there's a difference between upbringing and you not being a good parent. And we can raise different. I might take my child's cell phone, throw it out the window on the interstate. They might, put the child's phone in the glove compartment. We're still raising them, but I raise my kids and you don't deal with yours is totally different from upbringing. And I never thought about that, Barry, when you said it, but that makes sense. When, as parents, all of you said, when you look at your kids now, you understood what your parents did and you got a mind of a parent now, not the kid. So when you look at your kids, you're looking at things in their friends, because we've all had friends. So now you calling out stuff you see. Don't run with that person. Let that person go. I'm gonna tell you right now, that's gonna backfire. But they're looking at how you deal with your friends. So if you've been friends with such and such that robs, steals, kills, or does whatever for 30 years, and you like, I don't judge them, then how do you feel when your child is running with somebody and they go, but I don't judge them, because that's how you do with uncle or auntie such and such. Because what you do, more, I always say that too, more is sought than taught. I don't care what you tell me, I watch you. And if you run with your A1s forever, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, then I'm going to have the same loyalty in me, even if you tell me don't do that with my friends. And they are watching us, especially with those of us who got teenagers. You know this. They watch what you do. And if you laugh and joke about what y'all did, and uncle and auntie such and such do it, they're watching y'all more than they are what you're saying to them. I mean, I agree, when you get grown, have a good time and do your thing, but have a good time and be grown and do your thing with people who are accountable for their actions, their ways, their families, and their situations. I teach all of my kids, you can cut loose and have the best time in the world, but get up and go to work, pay your bills, and continue to invest in yourself and into the community that you're living in. Don't just go out here and run wild for no reason and think life is for free. It is different, because they watch our friendships as much as our actions, and that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
And that's why you have to be careful who you tell your child is uncle such and such and auntie such and such, because like, I mean, like, real talk, like that means something, you know. And when you tell, hey, if I could talk about Barry, because I mean I could talk about Barry. I mean, I probably talk about all y'all, but I know I had not seen Barry's new house. I hadn't seen where Barry lives at any point in time, but I know if I was riding through where he lived, and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna drop the kids off." It ain't got nothing to do. I ain't seen Barry discipline his kids one time. You understand me? I ain't seen him talk to him. I just know who he is as a person and as a parent. And I don't know. He might, at his house, his kids might not eat pork. My kids might be eating pork every day. Hey, but guess what? If I got to drop my kids off there, I'm good, because I know what he's gonna do. You know what I'm saying? And so I think to the viewers' point, like, the upbringing does make a difference, but to a certain extent. You know what I'm saying? To a certain extent, it does. I think as a teacher, I get really passionate about it, because I see so much of it. I've been in. I mean, I'm at Lugoff Elgin now, but I was at Richard Northeast before then, and then I worked at alternative school. But before I worked at alternative school, I worked at the Department of Juvenile Justice for 6.5 years, where I worked with kids who could not live with their parents because they were behavior problems and just different things like that. And I think that I see so much of kids that are neglected. It baffles me. It baffles me the amount of love that high school kids demand. Like, you would be shocked. I could be teaching the kids that the grass is green and the sky is blue, and they would listen like I'm teaching them something they've never heard in their life. Because all they want to know is that, hey, Coach Landon's going to say the grass is green and the sky is blue, but he's also going to say, how was your day?
Right.
Did you eat? Are you hungry? Hey, what's going on? What's wrong? You good? You know, and the amount of teenagers that just want somebody just to show them some love, it baffles me. And I can't say that I'm in each and every one of their homes and I know what's going on in their homes or whatever situations. But a lot of times I think it's just, honestly, I'll be real with y'all, I think it's just because I'm a guy.
It's because you're a guy, but you've shown genuine interest. Key things that you said this just now were, I asked how their day is doing. It's not just about the education. You're that community dad. I benefited from a community dad. My track coach in high school, he said, stop playing football. You ain't going nowhere in football. He was real with me. He said, get out here on this track. I'm going to get you to school because I know you got the talent. But I also want you to go to class and do your schoolwork. not knowing that he had a list of all his track athletes and went to every single teacher and said, if this one cuts up in your classroom, I need to know about it. Didn't tell us about it until we got caught up. Guess what? You have a slip come to that classroom. Coach Parker wants to see you. And he'll cuss you out straight up and down. And for me, I valued that. And I didn't realize it until I became an adult. Why it impressed on me so much and how I felt like I let him down whenever he had to get on me. It's because I never had a male to show me that genuine interest and care about anything. And to my point, not having a parent to check on your school grades. I went to school, I flunked out of classes. I didn't even have to worry about going home and getting no whooping. I'm still going outside to play. It didn't mean nothing to me. I didn't have to do my homework. Teacher sent home a slip. I might get yelled at, but that's it, because they know I got in trouble. But my mom couldn't read and knew what it was, unless my brother or sister had a vendetta against me and I pissed them off and they told them what it said. So the way kids spell love is Time.
Yes,
Giving
Lord.
them that time is what you're doing, Jeremy. So all these community dads, for children that don't have dads, they add some type of value and some element to their life that they feel like, I want to please this person.
That's it.
I don't want to piss off Coach, what's his name? I'm going to see Coach tomorrow. So if he hear that I was cutting up, I know he going to get on me. We look forward to hearing from Coach and hearing Coach say, you know what? Your teacher said you turned around in class this semester. That was music to my ears. So Jeremy, I commend you. Rob, your dad, I commend that, because that community is a factor. So it does take a village, and it still does today. This world is no different. The only thing that's changed, you have younger parents, more immature parents, and parents who don't understand how valuable it is to be active in their children's lives, because they out here partying with their kids instead of actually being parents.
Right.
And we gotta stop. We in that generation now. Jeremy touched on about being selfish, not being selfish. Rob, you co-signed all over that. Stop not allowing people to correct your child. Mm-hmm. We have a habit. The village, one thing about that village correction, like y'all talked about, those friends we had who had dads. Growing up as a child, one of my childhood friends, Zatavia's father, Gordon English, would just tell you, and he didn't sugarcoat it. Daddy Gordon was cussing at us when we were little. And he didn't sugarcoat it when he said it. From what you wearing that for, to why your hair tied up like that, to all of that. But the moms, like you said, Hook, all of us know everybody's moms. We got more Mama G, Mama F, Mama B, Mama Gwen, Mama everything than the man on the moon, because everybody's mama has something to say to you about something. They gave you gems and jewels. And even when you're grown now, they still are the ones that go, we'll try this or think through that. But the community is necessary. And what I see in this generation that I've never seen in the previous ones, you can't tell somebody else's child nothing. Don't fuss at my child. Don't yell at my child. Then if I can't correct and raise your child, what am I doing? Because you might not be telling them something that I am. And because of that mishap, because you're trying to protect it, I'm not going to hurt them. But it's necessary. My grandma don't know half the other mamas that cussed at me growing up. But she didn't tell me I couldn't be around them. Mm-hmm. But some of them mamas are the reason why I didn't date half the people I could have dated. Because like he said, my grandma was older. If I went home and told her about Keith or Kevin, she didn't know whether he was 26 or 22. She didn't care. But somebody else's mama who heard us talking did, and she might check us in a different way. You got to be open to let the community help. I remember Jeremy he didn't tell this story, but he had a student at Northeast, and that boy wouldn't come to practice for nothing. Jeremy went to this child's house and got the boy up and made him come to practice. He doesn't let those boys quit. And sometimes it's just knowing somebody care enough about you to go, hey, come on. No, you don't get to give up today. That makes a difference. I don't care how your season is going. If someone cared enough to know that you were missing, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, and
yeah,
go ahead, Jeremy.
No, I was going to ask you a question, Hook, and I posed it to everybody, but I was going to tell you because it's just kind of piggybacking off Chris said, and this is the last comment I'm going to have, I promise.
Oh, you good? Go ahead.
But I think sometimes, like, and I'll be honest, and it's going to sound harsh, but I think that we as people, and even as dads, I think sometimes we are teaching our kids to be losers. And I think that, and I asked a group of friends of mine, I said, you know, I'm not trying to be funny, but I said, I don't know if I'm teaching my sons to be winners. I said, I don't know. I said, I'm trying, but I'm worried. I said, am I truly teaching them to be winners? And so like what you said, Crystal, like I have to, it's a thin line because I'm tough. Like I really am. I'm tough. But I'm like, am I truly teaching them to be winners? How am I teaching them how to win? And I know Rob gonna have a lot to say about that. But like in real life, like as dads, like it's our job to teach the children to be winners. It's not the mama's job to teach them to be a winner. Because as a little girl, when a little girl goes to cry, they're told, oh, that's okay, sweetie. It's going to be all right. But when a little boy goes to cry, you tell them, get up, man up, and let's go. So are we teaching our kids to be winners? And I had to ask myself that. I ask myself that a lot now lately with my boys just now turning 8 and 9 and 7 years old. And I'm looking at other kids and I'm like, whoa. Am I teaching them to be winners? Like, have I been teaching them early enough? Is it too late? Because at 9 years old, like, you know, kids are growing up so fast. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, I want them to be kids, but then I'm like, when do I need to start impressing on them that, hey, it's time to go because you're going to get left behind?
Yeah. Rob, that's a great question for you because you got the oldest son on the podcast. My son is 9. Jaylane's kids are under 10. Barry, I know one of your babies ain't even here yet, and baby boy is definitely not 10.
My boy is 3.
Rob, you got a 17-year-old man as a son. How?
So, I mean, first of all, like, I don't really have a lot to say because that's an outstanding question. But here's what I can say about my sons specifically. So integrity is everything to me. And the definition of integrity is doing the right thing even when no one's looking. Right. And for me, my son is probably the walking definition of integrity. If he tells you he's going to do something, I can guarantee you that's what he's going to do. If he jumps in his car and tells me he's going somewhere, that's where he's going. You can bet on that. So, you know, you have these different milestones, you know, as you go through fatherhood to try to assess, you know, are you doing the right things? Are you teaching your kids to be, you know, winners? And, you know, so you do have those questions. And I'll be honest with you, you know, like there's times I've questioned myself as a father, like, you know, damn, I did everything I could, but things sometimes didn't necessarily turn out the way that I wanted them to. But at the end of the day, like, B, I think you said it earlier, like and Hook, I heard you say this as well, you know, like we're still learning, you know, within our roles. And, you know, me having a son at such a young age, you know, I grew up with him. Right. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I grew up with my son. My son has seen us when we didn't have shit. And then he's seen us when we've had a lot. So, you know, there's a different level of appreciation that my son has that my daughter doesn't have. So, you know, there's these different milestones that I'm like, you know what? And it makes me feel good as a father when I have people come to me and say, listen, I ran into your son. Oh my gosh, he's so mannerable. You know, yes, ma'am. You know, yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. X, Y, and Z. Hey, you know what? Like, you know, your son had $10. Your son had $10, and I saw him buy kids, you know, stuff at the canteen, you know, that didn't have money and X, Y, and Z. Those are the things that I measure a man on. Like, you know, are you doing the right thing when nobody else is looking? So for me, it makes me feel good that I can say that. And I just hope that, you know, he instills that in his kids one day. But I mean, it's an outstanding question because sometimes you just never know. And one of the things that my dad used to say all the time is sometimes it's not about how you were raised, it's about how you become. You know, so we have all the intent in the world, you know, so we're pushing all the positive intent that we can, but sometimes you may just turn out to be something different. So that scares me at times. And I'm like he's been such a model son. I'm like, damn, when is the switch going? Like, when is he gonna get in trouble? When is he gonna do something? And he just never does. Like, he just never does. Now, my daughter has a different story, different podcast. But him, he just always the straight and narrow. So, you know, you've got these measurements, but for me, it's integrity. And I think as we start to get older, I mean, you'll see it. I mean, you know, like being in jail, I'm not around you guys a lot, and you know, but I'll say this: you can already tell that from an integrity standpoint, like you guys have that. You're going to do the right thing even when nobody's looking. because that's what it takes to really be a man. That's the measurement of success. Are you going to do the right thing when nobody else is around? And if you are, then cool. Then people respect that. And I think that's what it really comes down to.
So it's a difference because, like, I have a daughter. I'm with you, Rob. I had my daughter I was pregnant at 20. She came in 21. Like, right after I said happy 21st, I was in the delivery room going, let me sign that paper. So you do grow up with your starter kid. I call them the starter kids. and it is different with their starter kid. But for me, with a son who's 9, and I mean, his dad and I, we work together for all 3 kids. But with a son, it's different. I'm sure he has different battles, you know, looking at his son and having that. And I look at different, seeing it, because as moms, we coddle them. I'm tough on them girls because I know them girls when they full of sugar, honey, iced tea, and when they're not. But with them boys, you see little boys that grow up around you. So you be like, I wonder if I yell at you today, and that's that one time you're going to pick an aggressive woman. Let me stop yelling. Or I don't want you to be like, you can't cry when you get older, but I wish you would suck that shit up today. So it's like the balance of, I do want my son to have integrity. I want him to go left. And when he say left, he go left. I want him to be that man that looks out for the people. I don't want to spoil him and make him a weak man. Like Jay Lane said, I don't want him to be like, hey, everybody gets an award. Oh, Negro, you lost. You're not first, you're last. But how do you not be too tough, but on that same token, be stern enough to where we're not coddling them too bad? And like Jay Lane said, yeah, it's not the mom's responsibility, it's the dad, but parenting is a team.
So, Crystal,
I can't right here being a boy to my son. He's gonna look for doily like women.
You know, one thing you said was, you know, moms tend to coddle these boys. I think this pretty much tells us what our problem is in our community, because when you have all these women raising these boys on their own, a lot of them are coddling them. You know what I'm saying? They're not forced to work for anything because of fears like that, right? But to your point, Jeremy, I want to touch back on you. You know, you asked that question about, am I raising my son right? Am I raising him to be a winner? I think one of the hardest things for us as Black men is vulnerability, right? We want to tell our sons, man up, you know what I'm saying, and be tough. You know, I kind of hated hearing that sometimes, even from like my coach, you know.
Me too.
And because at times I'm like, I need somebody to just, you know, love on me at that point.
Right.
And I think what's benefited me is having had those experiences, but also I think because I had girls first, and you're going to feel this when she comes. Girls are a different beast. They are different.
Yeah. Yes,
but
sir.
I'm grateful that I had a girl first. I had 2 girls first. And what it's helped me to recognize is how to tap into that emotional side. Because I remember having this conversation with my wife, and I'm holding my daughter and I'm just kissing on her all the time, posting pictures left and right. I mean, it was just like the best thing I ever experienced in my life, right? But then I thought about it. I was like, man, I don't know if I want a son, because he gonna hate me. Like, I'm gonna have to be the complete opposite. Like, I can't do this. Like, I got to get on his behind. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, but when I had my girls, I realized for myself, because you reason and you think about your time as a child, right? You think about, did my father look at me the way that I look at my child? Did they feel this for me when I'm feeling for my child when I'm holding them? So then when you start to think like that, I told myself, man, ain't nothing wrong with kissing my son. Ain't nothing wrong with telling my son I love him every day. Ain't nothing wrong with me hugging my son when he's crying and he's hurt. And
can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Bro, you spot on. This is the one thing I want to say. So right. I can probably count on one hand how many times my dad told me he loved me. I knew it.
Really?
Listen, let me tell you something. One hand, and I knew it. You guys have heard me talk about my dad. I knew it. But the way that my parents show love is you do things. You don't say and listen, like and you don't say things. Now my wife's side of the family, they say and do. But my side, they just do. So what I've learned with my son, and he'll tell you right now, I tell my son every single day that I love him. And he does the same thing, because you're absolutely right. Because the vulnerability, like, we're always taught, like, you got to be super hard. And like, my son plays basketball for Spring Valley. And there's been times where he's like, he feels like he didn't get enough playing time or X, Y, and Z. And he'll be upset instead of me being like, suck it up, da. I'll be like, you know what? at the end of the day, you got a house full of people that love you, and I'm one of them. Let's go. That's right.
And that's what matters.
That's it. And,
you know,
and
Rob,
listen,
that's
and
funny.
everything.
They tease me about
That's
that
it.
as
That's
friends.
it.
My friends say that. They say,
That's
you don't
it.
ever say I love you. I don't say I love you. I say what you need. You hungry? You need this? You need that? Because we didn't grow up like that with the love you, love you, love you. It's and now I'm doing it. But somebody had to bring it out that I don't do it because that's not how we did it. But you're right. We wanted it and we loved, we saw other people got it, but we never did it. And that's big. And you don't think about that with little boys that need that. That's something.
And Rob, I'm gonna say, I think my dad and your dad kind of grew up in some similar situations. So my dad grew up in a small town called Waycross, Georgia, down outside of Jacksonville, Florida. And like I say, it was like really tough, like Jim Crow, like, hey, you better watch your back.
You ain't lying, because I used to drive through there.
I'm telling you, like, you might get hit in the head with a rock on the way home type, like, hey, that type of stuff. Like, yeah, for real. And so, like, he grew up real. My grandparents, his parents were really, really stern. So when I grew up, he did everything for me. Now, don't get it twisted. He did everything, but just for him to come out and say, I love you, that was tough. So I do that personally. I do, but my wife's side, my father-in-law, I love my in-laws. My in-laws are awesome. My father-in-law, they speak that a lot. You know what I'm saying? And it's not a big deal for them to say, I love you and hug on each other and stuff like that. And so that's something I learned from them because I was like, well, I need my sons to feel that part as well. So I make sure I tell them like I love you, and I make sure I hug them, and and like Barry said, I think that's important. It's important to have that balance, especially in this day and age, because kids is different. They different. And people wonder why little boys go the other way. Hey, because you don't know appropriate love.
That's true.
But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, that's a fact. We can touch on that another day. Not this month. Not this month.
But there isn't it's even in the Bible. There is appropriate male to male love. There's appropriate love. There is. But a lot of times people don't want to hear that. But
people are not seeking companionship
love.
anymore. There's something about that love because people aren't seeking companionship anymore. They're not picking equally. People just want somebody to genuinely love them. And if you genuinely love them, they don't care whether you're a dog, cat, boy, girl, monkey, rat. It don't matter. They just want someone to genuinely love them because we're searching for it. That's something.
Well, I'll say this. I mean,
go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, not to change the subject, but it's kind of on the same line. But Crystal, you're spot on. But I think the problem with the younger generation is they're looking for love on social media and not in the right place. So what's happening is like they don't necessarily really know what real love is because social media is really validating, like what should be and what shouldn't be. So one of the things that I do within my household is I ensure that my children know what real, genuine, sincere love is. It's not how many likes you have. It's not how many followers you have. Now, if you want to use that from a business standpoint and get paid, then that is your man. I'll make sure that let's talk about how you get paid, but that's not validation about what love is. And that's why I love that J. Cole song so much. Like J. Cole, like that whole line in that song was about like, when he was talking about like, as long as the people in the house love you dearly, like that sticks to me and it resonates with me every single day because that's what's really important. So, there's times I have to sit down and have that conversation, but I think all of us that have kids that are growing up in this generation, like Jalen, like you hit it spot on. It's like we gotta make sure that we're guiding them in the right direction so they can really identify what's real and what's not.
No, they ain't looking for love; they're looking for likes. So
likes.
There's a huge difference, and because my girls, they're on social media and stuff like that. And like they, because nosy parent, I read through the little comments and stuff. They going back and forth with the little kids about filters and everything. I'm like, look, this is your social media. Why are you looking for them to validate who you are? I'm like, you don't need that. I'm like, you got, like you said, Robert, you got a group of people in this house that love you. That's all you need. Because family is everything, man. And we got a few minutes left, man. And Adrian asked a question earlier. And before we close out, I want to ask you guys, because I think it's a really good question, because one of the excuses that I hear a lot of brothers talking about in terms of why they don't take care of their kids is they baby mama. They baby mama make it hard, or they, they're taking them through whatever. Yeah, I'll be the first to say, because with my situation, it wasn't the easiest. You know what I'm saying? It was, there were a lot of times I'm like, man, you know what? I see why a lot of
but
dudes
we never
like,
would be able to tell because Zoe was your world and you always had her with you. We knew her, we knew you.
And my intent was I wasn't gonna let her mom discourage me. Now her mom's a great mom, but like our relationship didn't work out. So obviously she didn't see me the way that Zoe sees me, right? So I had to take a step back. I'm like, you know what? It don't even matter what her mama do. I'm gonna be there for my daughter. So Adrian's statement was rather, what advice do you have for fathers who want to be there? Let's say the mothers are the biggest hurdle. And go ahead. We're gonna start with you, Barry.
I'm gonna say that Jalen already know. I've actually lived this. I've went through an experience where I had a child that, ended up not being my child later on, but that's not the issue. I was a very present father. The child lived 2.5 hours away, and man, I was on the road 2 or 3 times out of the week. Like, you couldn't keep me from her, And I can tell you right now, we're talking about accountability here, and it's not a tit for tat, but it's nice when women hold each other accountable in our community, because there is such thing as a bitter baby mama, that will hold children hostage over whatever the case may be. If the father doesn't want to be with them, if they feel like they should give them more ends, whatever the case may be, or they should come when I tell them to come and take this child so I can go wherever I want to go, and different things. There's so many different variables. But the number one thing I will say, because I know I've been to that point where I felt like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to just deposit this money on Friday, and that child can go ahead and do whatever they want to do. I don't got time for the drama. I'm tired of dealing with this stress. It's easy to feel that way because you get tired of it, especially when you're a man who just wants to do right by your child and it's about the child. The best thing that I can say, the best advice that I would give is that child has nothing to do with it.
Right.
As ignorant as the situation may be, whether it's the mother or her mother, because it's different variables. There's different factors in people not wanting to be involved in their children's lives. It's not always just baby mama drama. It could be the baby daddy, the stepdaddy, the grandmama. There's so many different variables there. But you do not give up on your child, because one thing that I do know is that when a child becomes of age, they're going to want to know, why didn't you fight?
Right.
Because at that point, the accountability falls on that mother. Even if you tried and you couldn't get to them, the fact that they know that you tried, you showed up to their school, you showed up to that recital, despite that mother trying to keep you from them, despite the fact that she might cause a scene, that child knows that you care. They're going to remember those moments, because while she's being ignorant, they're going to remember those moments. And when they look back as they become teenagers and adults, they're going to be like, man, I remember when he showed up and my mama acted out and I couldn't understand. But then they also realize this man loved me enough to deal with this bull crap. So for those fathers out there that are dealing with it, man, it's totally worth it. It's worth going through that struggle. It's worth going through that headache, because when that child becomes of age, they will value it. And I'm telling you this because, like I said, my father, I knew him all my life, but I didn't know that he was my father. So when I finally had that face-to-face, that one-on-one, those questions resonated in my mind. Why didn't you fight? Why weren't you there? Why didn't you even tell me that you was my father? You saw me. You knew where I lived. You spoke to me. You were nice to me. So it's not even the fact that they're just not present, but that drama is worth it. No child is worth giving up on, because when they become adults, they're going to be able to reason on whether or not my father cared enough to still fight for me or not. So that's the pain that they'll live with if you don't fight.
Absolutely. And what about you, Rob? What advice would you give to brothers who say that their baby mama, quote unquote, is the biggest hurdle?
Yeah. So there isn't anything that B just said that I don't agree with. The sacrifice is worth it. So, like, what sacrifices are you willing to make to be successful, and like what sacrifices are you willing to make to ensure that your child is successful? And that's something that you got to absolutely ask yourself. So is it worth it? Absolutely. For a quick second, I will say this though, and it's probably going to be unpopular, but I don't really care. I do know I have a real close friend who did everything in his power, to take care of his child. I mean, I'm talking about 2 years back and forth from South Carolina to Florida. I mean, I remember one time where he took vacation for an entire week, went to every magistrate court within that area, where his child and the child's mother lived, and tried to put himself on child support. I mean, everything that he absolutely could. And then she absolutely just one day just jumped up and moved away. And I mean, he hasn't seen the child, hadn't heard from her, and I mean, in years. I mean, off social media. I mean, just almost fall off the face of the earth. And from time to time, every maybe once a year or so, it pains him. We have a drink or so, and he'll cry a little bit or X, Y, and Z. So you do have, unfortunately, I mean, their probability is super small, but you do have women out there that are bitter enough and hateful enough that they're more concerned about hurting you versus ensuring that their child has a support system that they actually need. So it's not the majority, it is the minority, but I still think that we should call that out. But so for people that are, listening and watching this podcast, we're not saying that, if you don't have a relationship with your child, that it's all your fault. The question is it worth the sacrifice? Absolutely. It's worth the drama. It's worth everything else. And then be spot on, later on in life, that child will be able to make a sound decision and say, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, it wasn't the way that I wanted, but at least that he tried. So, for anybody watching, anybody out there, I'm a product of not necessarily just my environment, but I'm a product of having, a real active father, who made all the sacrifices in the world to ensure that I was successful. So, I'm eternally grateful. So if anybody's listening and you're struggling right now, going back and forth, like, just go forward. Absolutely make that sacrifice and take care of your child.
Amen.
Yes, sir.
All right, Jaylene, what you got?
I'm gonna just echo basically what Barry and Rob said, man. Once you've done all you can do, there's nothing else you can do. So, I mean, the sacrifices that you're making, I would just try to encourage those, if it is a hurdle, I mean, it's there, acknowledge the hurdle, but just try to find a way to either go over the hurdle, go under the hurdle, go around the hurdle, whatever you got to do to sacrifice. Sometimes you might got to get on your hands and knees and crawl through it and just kind of push to try to get so you can try to develop that relationship. And it just acknowledging the fact that there are situations like that and that it is real life, because it is two people, and two people have two sets of emotions and two sets of feelings, and understanding that you might need mediation and maybe you can't do it on your own, and maybe there needs to be somebody that you can reach out to that can help you try to navigate that spectrum. I hate hearing about situations like that, but I just hope that people, and like Rob said and Barry said, if you are struggling with it, just know, hey, you got a support system. People are here around you. We hear you. We feel your pain, and just keep pushing. Because sometimes the work the work means more than the work is just as important as the end result. So push through that process and try to figure out how to make it work. And we understand that sometimes even with the most work, you still might not end up with the result you want, but at least you did everything you can do.
Absolutely, man. And a lot of people say being a father is a thankless job, but the thing is, I don't need your thanks. I don't want your thanks, because I love being a dad. You know what I'm saying? Like it's especially growing up not having that father figure there. It's simply knowing that I'm there for my kid, and knowing that they can come to me for anything. And the thing is, it's not been easy by any stretch of the imagination. But I love every step, man, every single thing. But what my daughter can say, and I know she can say this when she gets older, is that I love my daddy, and my daddy has always been there. So that's really all the thanks, all the appreciation that I need. And again, man, this was great, man. So Rob, I thank you for even giving us the idea to even broach this topic, man. I really do. And thank you for coming on too. And Jaylene and Barry, I can now tell my cousin I know two Kappas who are pretty cool. But you know, I make sure I let them know that. So, Chris, what we talking about next week?
I don't know. I'm trying to get the Black Fathers Part 2 because this was good. This was by far one of the best. If I had to rate in our top 5,
Absolutely,
because you know we've had 50 the same age as Hook. If I had to rate my top 5, this would definitely be one because this was amazing. This is a rewatch. This is a sit around with your friends and watch again. So I appreciate all of y'all who were voluntold to be here. Don't know who told you, but I appreciate you listening to me. But next week, my second love after Black men who hold each other accountable is music. And I am going back to hip hop and music. So next week, I don't want, last time we did the hip hop and the music conversation, we did DJs and we had a really good time. But I want the good old fashioned barbershop, card table slapping, when you talk, you clap your hands conversation about music. So we're going to talk about the top 5 rap artists from 2000 to 2010 and from 2010 to present. And then we're also going to talk about top 5 albums over the last 20 years. And if you could put together a cipher with your 5 best artists, who would you include? I'm gonna start some shit next time.
But you got to make one thing though. If whoever's going to be involved in this conversation, they can't be born in the 90s.
No.
That's for sure. Oh, that's for sure. Oh, that's for sure.
I definitely got grown-ups. They were all 80s babies.
Yeah,
and they cannot use Big or Pac in their top 5. No more going to the go-tos. Big, Pac, Jay-Z, Nas.
Now we can work with that. So it should be pretty interesting, man. So I really want to hear everybody's take. So I think it's going to be good. And again, this was a phenomenal dialogue, man. Phenomenal conversation.
Awesome.
I think this is the longest we've ever gone because it's like the conversation got
too
good.
I
just didn't want to end it. So and don't be surprised, man. We asked you guys back for another episode because just reading through the comments, there are a lot of like alternative episodes that we can really piggyback off of. So don't be surprised if we reach out and have you guys back on. But again, this was great. Rob, Barry, Jaylene, I appreciate you. Chris, as always, my dog. You know how we do. And again, for the audience, thank you for viewing. Make sure you react, make sure you share, make sure you comment, and make sure you subscribe to the material as well. So until next time, we'll see you.
Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate y'all, man.
I really appreciate y'all tonight. This was awesome.